Welcome to the Athletic NBA Daily. We are doing a deep dive on the Los Angeles Lakers with Dan Woike of the Athletic. Let's get into it. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dan.
It is so nice to be here.
Dogs barking in the background. We're vibing. This is July. Let's do it.
Dogs barking, kids screaming. We might get a Hot Wheels fight in the other room. It's the summer, man. Everybody's home. Man. Everybody's itchy. It's a time.
No, it is. It is. And look, we are slowly approaching, if not already there, with the dog days of summer. But in your first couple of months here at the Athletic, the Lakers have kept you busy, to say the least. Is that not true? How has it been for the first couple of months for you?
I mean, so when I started, intentionally started the week of the draft because, I knew there would be news. And I wanted to be kind of ready to hit the ground running on stuff. I thought it would make it easier. It hasn't made it easier. I did not anticipate the LeBron opt-in / sort of like I'm maybe shopping around a little bit. I didn't, I was surprised that was as public as it was. I think some of the trade conversations and different things, I didn't think I'd be joining the beat like right as the team was sold either. Right. That was like a pretty big shock. It was, I had an interesting conversation the other day I think we'll get into this. I still think out of everything, sale included, the single biggest piece of Lakers news hasn't happened yet this summer. And it will happen, I believe, here the first weekend in August when Luka Doncic signed some form of an extension with the team, even more so than the sale. That you can have great ownership. It's really great to have it. It's good to have deep pockets. You need great players. And if Luka is the version he was prior to the injury, prior to the trade, and I think there's a pretty good reason to believe that he will be, that's the single most important thing that will happen for the Lakers over the next decade is how this goes on August 3rd. And we can start there. I mean, I think it's going to go well for them. It certainly seems like he is going to sign the extension.
So okay, let's start there since we've started. Luka Doncic. There's obviously when they made the trade, which still baffles me to this day, by the way, and it will baffle me for the rest of my life, honestly. When they made this trade to start the year, everything built up to this moment right here that you're mentioning and that extension. And everything that they've done so far, whether it be the free agency signings, we'll get to those in a second with DeAndre Ayton, Marcus Smart, Jake Laravias of the world. Everything is built up to this moment and satisfying Luka Doncic. You mentioned the sale of the Lakers as well, and I think it's worth noting that Luka sent out a statement as soon as that sale happened as well, saying, "Hey, I'm excited for this future." It was sort of a vouch for what was to come. Is this all, but it's a foregone conclusion that Luka Doncic is going to extend in August at some point?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that it would be certainly weird to be so actively inviting people to come to a party that you're about to bail on. Right. That's a weird move. Like we just hosted a birthday party the other day. If my son didn't show up to his own birthday party after he invited everybody, people would kind of be like,
weird.
What the hell?
Yeah.
No doubt. So I think look, there've been a lot of really positive signs on the Luka front, from the way the organization has moved in alignment with him and his team, from the way I think since the trade, even despite the shock of the trade, the way he's embraced Los Angeles and done things in the community to ingratiate himself, and also for the good of it, whether it be paying for a Kobe mural to be, refurbished. Right. He made a really big wildfire donation right away after the trade. I think, it's a huge stage. It's a huge opportunity for him. I think he was shook by the trade. He didn't see it coming.
No, you could tell from the emotion of everything that he had.
For sure.
Press conference.
He was carrying baggage.
You covered it because obviously you were there watching it all unfold. Has it sunk in for him, you feel, over the last 6 or 7 months playing a playoff series and getting acclimated with LA? Has it really gotten to the point where he feels like a Laker now? You know,
I mean, so when he signs the extension, assuming he signs the extension, I think it would be a pretty big change of heart if he didn't.
Yeah.
It'll been about 6 months since the trade. Right. And I think, you know, this was a player who never thought he was going to be traded, who thought he was going to be what Dirk Nowitzki was to the Mavericks. He thought that was going to be his career. Right. Like, and it was pretty well established that if he wanted it to be, it probably would be. Mm-hmm. And then that changed. Right. And I think he had to deal with a lot of emotional fallout from that. Some shame, some humiliation, I think some anger, a lot of anger, to have his life uprooted that way, you know, in a way that he didn't seem that interested in uprooting. Mm-hmm. I think it takes time to then see the positives in whatever's in front of you. And I think he has seen some of those positives, right? Yeah. I think the way he's moved both as a recruiter, but also I just think like there's a recognition among the people around him that this is like a real opportunity, that there's, you know, a way of being sort of a global star in Los Angeles that can like scratch a couple itches for him. Like, you know, I've said this before, but like, you know, Luka loves the spotlight. He loves the stage. Mm-hmm. He doesn't particularly love the trappings of fame. Right. You know, where's a great place to get to perform and then not worry about being that famous? A place with a ton of other famous people. you know, like that makes life a little easier. A little easier. Yeah. And that way you can move fairly anonymously as a famous person in Los Angeles. It's sort of like built for that.
That's a good point. I haven't really even considered that, truthfully, because when there's like Ben Affleck and whoever kind of roaming the streets, you know,
Chalamet is courtside, like whatever. Yeah. Like if you want to go out if you want to go be at like the restaurant where the paparazzi's at, you can go there. If you want to go to like, you know, a secluded place, like there's tons of them. If you want to hire a chef in your Malibu mansion, you can do that. Like there are options to stay bothered or stay quiet. There are plenty of famous people who aren't in the tabloids in Los Angeles who get left alone.
Yeah,
sure, they want
that's true. And look, the you know, you mentioned the part about him being motivated and angry and kind of dealing with all those emotions. I mean, there might not be anything better than a motivated and angry Luka Doncic. We've seen him in the playoffs before, right? Like what he's done to playoff teams in the past with the Mavericks should show you what a like invigorated version of himself can be. Let's get into some of the transactional stuff that has happened. Okay. So obviously we'll get into LeBron James and the opt-in situation, but they re-signed Jackson Hayes. In comes DeAndre Ayton, Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia. They added Adu Thero, their rookie. Out goes Dorian Finney-Smith. Out goes Jordan Goodwin. Out goes Trey Jameson, among others. I want to start with Marcus Smart because that's the most recent one. Luka played a big part in recruiting him. You guys spoke to Marcus as well about that. But also, you know, this isn't the same Marcus Smart that won Defensive Player of the Year. You know, there's been some time since then. Injuries, being on teams that are not really interested in winning, particularly Washington, have kind of like derailed his, I guess, reputation in the league a little bit. But he still believes he can be the swing piece. And you wrote about that recently. How do you feel about Marcus Smart being added onto this team? It's weird to see Marcus Smart in a Lakers uniform first and foremost, but
it'll be strange. Is he going to dye his hair purple? Is it going to be, is it going to be gold? Yeah. Like, you know, I think that's like the thing that I wrote about this in the story, and I'm sitting in the press room yesterday. You know, I'd seen Marcus Smart, you know, greet Rob Pelinka with a hug and like walk through the building, and, you know, he'd worked out there. As a draft prospect, you know, Lakers, he got selected before Lakers take Julius Randle in that draft. You know, I think the thing that struck me, so I was like, let's just let's just refresh ourselves as to what kind of player Marcus Smart has been. There's like a 22-minute clip on YouTube. It's like Marcus Smart's 36 greatest plays as a Celtic. And it's all stuff you would want to see out of a winning player.
True.
Boom, boom, boom in a row, diving for loose balls, you know, throwing great passes. And like, honestly, watching it, it's like you see that and you can get excited. And then you just like look around though, as to like what's happening around him on the court. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looks like he's like 13 years old. Jason Tatum like barely has facial hair. Jaylen Brown still has the flat top. Like there are constant reminders everywhere of how long ago
it's been a while.
These plays have been made. And look, it's 2 years, maybe 3, depending on kind of how you feel about his last year with the Celtics. That's an eternity in the NBA. Like the league turns over really, really quickly. 3 years ago, the Oklahoma City Thunder weren't the threat they were. 3 years ago, Victor Wembanyama was in the league. Like, I mean, just things change fast.
Yeah.
I think with the argument for Marcus Smart, well, one, for the Lakers, it's a really low risk move, right?
Absolutely.
It's the biannual exception. It cost them Jordan Goodwin. They don't feel great about that, but a bet they were willing to make.
Yeah.
I think the argument for it is that, like, look, you're going to get this guy again, highly motivated, aware that he was just paid in part by another team to go play for someone else. Mm-hmm. Like the Moneyball David Justice line is like, basically it's happening to him. It's happening to DeAndre Ayton too.
Yeah.
And both of those guys are entering a free agency where there's going to be a lot of available money, and their ability to get that money is contingent on whether or not they perform. And I think they're going to be put in situations where they can succeed. I think Marcus Smart, some of the things he does well in terms of like physicality, tenacity, defensive identity, like this team has a void and a need for it.
Absolutely.
Whether or not he can check Ja Morant, if he's quick enough still to do that type of play, that kind of defense, I don't know that he was even necessarily before, but I think like he plays with a certain identity that gives you real value. And if he can be on the court and be healthy, that's a win. Now, if he can be on the court and be healthy, is a pretty big yes.
Yeah, that's the ever evolving question with Marcus Smart. I will say, when the Grizzlies traded for him 3 years ago, I thought, and I said to myself, if he pairs well with Ja and they have a healthy season, obviously what happened with the Grizzlies was just an injury riddled season. They barely got a chance to see that group together. But if it worked, Smart himself would add a level of lineup versatility to that Grizzlies lineup because he can guard a little bit bigger, because he can guard next to Ja Morant. And I think the idea here is pairing someone who can guard some of the matchups that Luka Doncic would not want to guard on a night-to-night basis. So to your point, Ja Morant, if that makes sense. The buy-in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's just like, before the trade, it was like, Gabe Vincent's a good defensive player, but, I think like he hasn't been consistent enough offensively to sort of merit like late game, get us a stop, sort of minutes. Certainly the same for Jared Vanderbilt. Jordan Goodwin, I think, gave them good spot minutes. I don't think that Marcus Smart is like going to be a 35-minute a night player on this team. Like that doesn't seem to be what the role is.
Right.
If it is, that means he's played great or things have gone horribly wrong. Like it's like it's going to be one or the other. Yeah. I do think though, like as their functionally third guard, who can guard some bigger players. I think, look, he can play with Luka. He can play with Austin Reeves. He can play with LeBron James. Like there's versatility in that. He knows what it takes to make winning plays. He's played in big games. And I think maybe part of the bet is, we mentioned this with Luka, right? Like Luka didn't ask to be traded. Marcus Smart didn't ask to be traded from Boston. Yeah. And there is like, these are real people. There are emotional fallouts to this type of stuff. And he was dealt a hand over the last 2 years with injuries, with being in situations where, he might not have chosen for himself. That, now again, he's taken some level of control over his destiny, and he's at a place where he's wanted, and he's playing with great players on a stage where he'll be seen and showcased. Maybe that's enough to reinvigorate him. Is that enough for him to play 70 games? I don't know. Or 60? I think they would take 60. They would sign up for 60 right now.
They would sign up for 60. And I honestly, to your point about the minutes, that's probably like it goes hand in hand. How many minutes he plays versus how many games he ends up playing for them is a question. And also like he's a winner, man. At the end of the day, you bring in a guy who's high character. Even in his time in Washington, there were moments where it was like he's tutoring up kind of the younger players, giving them pointers. I think that's a guy you want to bring into your organization regardless. Want to ask about DeAndre Ayton, because that is also another guy who theoretically fits on paper, making that bet on himself here with the Lakers. Everything, I don't know if you watch Arrested Development, but it's like it hasn't worked for everybody else, but it'll work for us type of thing. I don't know if that applies to DeAndre Ayton. I don't feel like that's fair to maybe the contextual situations in Phoenix and Portland to what DeAndre Ayton is as a player and his character and all those type of things that have been talked about ad nauseum. But why do Lakers fans, or why should Lakers fans feel Lakers DeAndre Ayton will be different than Blazers or Suns DeAndre Ayton?
Well, I mean, I don't think he has to be that different from Suns DeAndre Ayton.
Fair.
Right.
Yeah, fair.
I think Suns DeAndre Ayton's issues, I think, came more from like being based on, what I've heard. I wasn't obviously around that team every day. Yeah. Was like, like that team was like at a little bit of an identity crossroads as to like who was going to be the most important players or the most important pieces. And there was a real question about whether or not it could be DeAndre Ayton or would be somebody else. And I think, look, his ability to run pick and roll with Chris Paul like got them to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Right. Like that was a big part of why they played in the NBA Finals. Now, is he Rudy Gobert on the back line? He's absolutely not. And I think he's going to have to be on a team that doesn't have the same sort of perimeter defense as that Suns team. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, real rangy peak Mikal Bridges, Chris Paul still being like just like, super tough and grimy, and Booker at times being really like, I think a really capable defender himself. Like that those Phoenix teams could do some stuff on that side of the ball that, maybe this Laker team won't be able to. But look, he's going to run pick and roll with Luka Doncic. Like Luka Doncic has made way less talented players. It's going to make life
very easy on him. Yeah.
Look great. And I think, DeAndre Ayton's a better athlete, I think, than people realize or remember. I have a theory on this.
Okay.
I think he looks old. He has like an old face.
Oh, it's like the picture of Nate Thurman, and he's like 20. This guy's 26 years old, right?
Yeah. So like, I think he just kind of looks like, like the Wilford Brimley line, right? Like it's sort of, I think he just looks like sort of old, and he's not that old. He's 26. And you can watch like, his athleticism, beat the Clippers in a playoff game, like a play, like the Valley-oop, like a play at the rim. Him with Chris Paul was like pretty effective. And I think pairing him with, maybe the best pick and roll player in Luka Doncic, like a guy who can create this stuff. By the way, not to mention, LeBron James and Austin Reeves, like also guys who work really well in those situations and get guys these buckets. The job should be pretty easy for him, right? Should he be willing to accept it, which is set good screens, roll to the basket, get to the mid range, like don't post up a ton. You're not going to get a lot of post ups. Don't shoot a bunch of 18-footers. He's a good 18-foot jump shooter, but you don't have to, like, it should be pretty easy. And like the numbers and the production should just sort of come. And again, really low risk. I think, in talking to people inside the Lakers front office about the way they went about finding a center, getting a player as good as DeAndre Ayton without having to sacrifice future flexibility or assets. They view it as a huge win. Now it's on everybody else to make it work and to make the talent sort of shine. But like the talent's there. Like they didn't have to overpay for talent or for fit or for any of that stuff. I like there's going to be nights where it looks bad, and there are going to be clips where he looks disinterested. But again, like, I mean, what's the difference between him having a good year? I mean, this would be my message to him, and I'm sure this has been communicated to him by Bill Duffy, his agent. It'll be communicated to him by the Lakers. What's the difference for him between having a good season and a bad season financially? True. $120 million.
A lot. Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a lot at stake for him. And I think you're getting a talented player at a time when he is experienced and still young and has a ton to lose. And I think, the things that I know about people, like that's a good time to get your hands on somebody
motivated.
To try and like, and that's going to be the story of this Lakers team. I think in a lot of ways is you have a bunch of people who are motivated for very different reasons. And now the question is, if you're DeAndre Ayton, what are you motivated by? Is it getting the ball in the post and having the offense run through you, and that you think that's your pathway to a big payday? Or is it catching laps from Luka Doncic? And like, maybe you're the Lakers center for the next 3 seasons.
Right.
And because you're the same age. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And you get a good payday from the Lakers because you've earned it. And you're a long-term part of this. I think the thing about the Lakers big picture is that they managed, in my opinion, to thread this weird little needle. And we can talk more about this as we go on, where they were able to like keep Luka competitive now, which was important to Luka, right? It was like Luka didn't want to punt a season. Like that was not interested at this stage in his career. Left a very good Dallas team. He wants to win. He wants to be competitive. The Lakers had limited assets and a roster that wasn't built around Luka Doncic. They know that needs to change, and that the part of this is going to be a project. So they were able to keep their books pretty clean moving forwards. They haven't sacrificed assets, and I think they might be better than they were a year ago.
They are.
When they were the 3 seed.
So they're talent wise, they are absolutely better on paper than they were when they won 50 games last year, right? Sure. And that's a testament to winning around the margins, which is something the Lakers had to do with the limited flexibility.
And have struggled with. We won't know if they've won around the margins or not until if Jordan Goodwin has a better season than Marcus Smart because Marcus Smart is injured.
Yes,
that's a loss around the margins, right? Yeah. But I think if I had called you on June 20th and said, hey, you're going to lose Dorian Finney-Smith, but because you have access to the mid-level and biannual exception, and you get, you get your starting center in Deandre Ayton, you get a young wing in Jake LaRavia, and you get a point of attack defender in Marcus Smart. Like, and you don't have to trade any outgoing draft capital. Would you make that trade?
Yeah.
I love Dorian Finney-Smith. Dorian Finney-Smith, awesome dude. Culture is so important to me. He is a culture person.
Big friend of Luka Doncic as well, right? That was a part of it.
For sure. Guy who can laugh at himself, who can take criticism. Awesome dude to have around. I would trade him for 3 rotation players. Yeah, I just would. Right. They needed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Depth was something they were missing last year. And I mean, clearly that's an aspect they wanted to address. And to your point, the flexibility mattered. When we come back from the break, because I thought you brought up a really good point about flexibility, LeBron James plays a big part into this flexibility. So when we come back, we'll talk about LeBron and what the Lakers might look like next season. Listeners, we want to hear from you. Check out the link in the description to give us feedback on the show. What content you have enjoyed the most and what would you like for us to do differently next season? Again, thank you for all of your continued support. All right, folks, we're back. So look, we talked about it a little bit, and just a quick footnote on the additions last year or this summer. Jake LaRavia, big fan of what he can bring to this Lakers team. We talked about lineup versatility with Marcus Smart and Deandre Ayton. There's a world in which LaRavia plays a big part in that. You think of what him and Rui Hachimura can do offensively off of the ball next to Luka and LeBron, and that's where the LeBron question evolves. Obviously, he opted into his $52.6 million player option, final year of his deal. And there's obviously an evolving question about what will happen next to LeBron James and the Lakers. The statement that came out said, LeBron is looking to remain competitive and, be a title contender or be on a title contender moving forward in his career. Is this roster, the guys we just talked about, and Ayton, Smart, obviously Luka, and LaRavia, is what the Lakers have done so far enough for LeBron to feel like this is a contender?
I don't want to speak for him on this because I haven't had that conversation specifically with Rich Paul or with anybody around LeBron. Yeah. I think well, I shouldn't say with anybody around LeBron. I think the people that I've spoken to know LeBron about some of this stuff, have been fairly encouraged with the summer. I think again, they were pretty good last year and they were pretty good under fairly trying circumstances. Yeah. Their roster completely upended in February when they were playing really good basketball with the Luka for Anthony Davis trade. I think, their identity really shifted then. The way that they had to play off of Luka Doncic, I think both him and Austin Reeves were very passive, intentionally passive with Luka to kind of give him as much runway as possible to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. All 3 of them are really, really smart players. And I think they felt, I think, and I've heard both of them say it, they felt like they needed to cede to Luka to say mm-hmm. This is yours. This is your home now. Be as comfortable as you need to be. I kind of think they can kind of be in the lab now more, right? in training camp, like figuring out ways that works for all of them in a better way. And it'll still be, it's still going to be Luka. But like, I think like they didn't know how to play with one another, you know, and it's going to sound like an excuse. And they lost in the first round of playoffs. They did. It's real. It happened. They were also the 3 seed in the West. They won. They were really, really good when Luka, LeBron, Reeves, and Rui Hachimura all played.
Small ball lineup was really, really effective. Absolutely.
And they added, again, like a credible starting center. You know, a point of attack guy, Marcus Smart. Again, we'll see on him. But I think the Ayton thing is like he's a credible starting center.
Yep.
And, you know, and they still bring back Jackson Hayes, a guy who played pretty well as a starting center until, you know, the stakes got a little higher. And I think some of his deficiencies were exposed. So I think they should feel good about all of that stuff. You know, you get a head coach, by the way, too, in year 2, who's had a summer to self-audit. If you know JJ Redick, he's been auditing. Like he's, you know, the word psycho gets thrown around a lot in like a positive way. Like he's a sicko and he's going to look at himself and really pick apart his performance, and he'll be better in year 2 than he was in year 1. So I think there's real reasons for optimism on that way. Where the is it good enough question, I think probably has more to do with like the Houstons and the Denvers and the Oklahoma Cities of the world than it does specifically with the Lakers. But I mean, I'd ask, and I think like this, you know, we reported this, Joe Vard and I, like, I mean, the Lakers have not had conversations about trades or buyouts with LeBron. It's just been mostly conjecture created by the statement and the vacuum that surrounded it.
Yeah.
Where's the better situation today?
Sure. Yeah. Also,
it's
like,
just like
it's really hard to trade $53 million of salary to 100%. Get wherever.
And the Lakers don't want to take back long money. They don't because of future flexibility. I don't believe that LeBron James like wants out so badly that he would risk some level of legacy by like you know, leaving money on the table, which has been the antithesis of how he's moved.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, he's a guy who has earned every penny he's made in the NBA. And is
probably
underpaid.
Needs more. Yeah, exactly.
And is underpaid. Right. And still probably underpaid. All NBA second team last year. So, you know, I just don't really believe that there's a world where he says, I'll take the minimum somewhere. Like, I could be wrong. But that just doesn't seem like, doesn't seem like how he's moved.
Right. Okay. So follow-up question to that is LeBron and Luka just scratching the surface. Obviously, we don't know how much longer LeBron wants to play. Let's say a year, 2 years, whatever it is. The number is indefinite. Yeah. We don't know. But that duo together, even in the short amount of time that they were together, there's a recipe there. The fast break transition play that they had, the outlet passes were clearly there. The offensive chemistry, like while they were still figuring things out, there was a lot there on the table. The group next to them now is better. The talent around them now is better. Austin Reeves, JJ Redick heading into his second year as a coach. Luka in his prime, just coming off of a finals appearance the year before. I guess I understand prioritizing cap space and future flexibility in order to chase after someone. But we've seen now that like free agency doesn't exist in the same way that it existed maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So what is that big fish? Like who is the guy or who is the person or project or something that they're gunning for 2 years from now that works better than what they have now, you know?
So I don't think it's necessarily 2 years from now, for one. Okay. Right. I think like having max cap space this upcoming summer when Austin Reeves is on a really tiny cap hold, right?
Yeah.
It is valuable. It's not just max cap space to go out and spend in free agency, because free agency isn't the type of thing that it's been in the past, right? Like it isn't. Everybody mostly extends, you know, unless you're like looking for like super, super max extensions. And then like you're trying to like use some leverage or something like that down the road to make sure like the roster is what it is. Yeah. I kind of view it more as like maybe you have that cap space. You'll have some draft picks that you can trade starting on draft night. They'll have access to 3, provided they don't trade a first round pick. What does cap space and 3 first round picks get you? Like, does that get you pieces or the right kinds of pieces as you start to build this roster out around Luka Doncic?
Right.
You know, assuming you're re-signing Austin Reeves too. Like, you know, how does that fit around those two guys in that version? And like, how does LeBron then slot in? Should he want to keep playing?
Right.
And I think like that's the thing, right? It is about flexibility. Is there one or two players? I mean, like, sure. Like, I mean, they want the same all NBA first team players as everybody else. I'm not going to say names because it'll get aggregated and of course, do they have enough to get any of them? I don't know that they do. Right. I don't think they do. But I think,
but they also didn't have enough to get Luka, and they got Luka. Then they got Luka. That's the other side of that.
I think that's the argument, right? Is like giving yourself as many possible pathways around Luka and what comes next, and giving yourself a chance now to get a real look at what it looks like with Austin Reeves, LeBron James. You go into next summer, neither of them are going to be under contract. I mean, assuming Austin Reeves opts out and into free agency, which if he has a good year, he will do that.
He will absolutely do that. Yeah.
And so like you get a real chance to evaluate. What I think is the interesting question is sort of like, and this is something I may or may not be working on, is sort of like the decision making is about like, pushing in a little bit more now versus like being flexible and sort of those team building decisions that the Lakers have been faced with. Mm-hmm. Look, they haven't signed anybody for more than 2 years, right? Yeah. Like that's been intentional. The player options to Marcus Smart and DeAndre Ayton are both kind of perfunctory. Like they exist. Like if things go well, neither of those players is opting
Absolutely.
in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if things go poorly, those contracts aren't so big that the Lakers couldn't attach draft capital or waive and stretch, whatever, right, where you can still maneuver around it. But I think it's like, where they're at now is like, it is, I don't want to say like a version of two timelines, because that would make it seem like they're not committed to the now. Yeah. I really think they're trying to accomplish both. And by gambling on these players on buyouts, first of all, by like these players, like by teams, like even like buying out these guys, which feels like a pretty new trend.
Yeah.
To do it in the summer before, the apron penalties kick in on teams can't sign these players. It's given them a fighting chance, I think, at this season, a chance to be competitive around Luka Doncic, and like the Clippers, like Denver, to a lesser degree, like Houston. I mean, like all these teams, like if Luka is great, if your best player is great, like, are they going to have a chance?
Yeah,
sure. Absolutely. I don't think there's a doubt.
I agree with
Luka
you.
Doncic.
Look, they go as far as he goes. And like he's taken worse teams further in the playoffs before. Yeah. And there is definitely a case for them to say, well, look, we understand how competitive the West is next year. I saw someone yesterday say they felt comfortable about like 13 teams in the West making the playoffs. And that's the world that they live in right now, where like obviously the Oklahoma Cities and Denver Nuggets and Houston Rockets and Minnesota Timberwolves and Clippers of the world are going to be in that conversation. But when you have Luka Doncic, when you have LeBron James,
conversation.
You're thrusted into that conversation. I understand them not stacking up to that level, but also to your point about them opting into flexibility, like that's why they're opting into flexibility. It's hey, we can still remain competitive now while assessing the market, see how the season falls, and then
I just don't even think there's been that much out there for them, to be honest. Like right. when I call around and I talk to other GMs and I talk to other, execs and personnel people on other teams, like I don't really know what like the first round pick and their expiring money gets you.
Right.
It has value. Don't get me wrong. Like it has value. But like and I'm just like making up a name. This is to be perfectly clear. I'm just like making up a name. Like, does trading your expiring money and your first round pick for Miles Bridges,
right, change
does that change the trajectory of your season? Does trading expiring money?
Yeah.
Does trading expiring money and your first round pick to
like Orlando for Wendell Carter, whatever, something.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, again, if you're eating Franz Wagner, sure. They're not doing that. Right. And I think they're kind of in this in between, this sort of in between place where I think betting on internal growth is like, it's both smarter and safer at the same time. You know, and like, are they a little risk adverse? Like maybe, you know, would they trade all that stuff? I'll give you, like, let's make it even bigger. Your first round pick, your swaps, and all your expiring money for like Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily.
I don't think that gets you closer
term.
to a title. I don't think that gets you closer to a title. Like, honestly, I don't. And I think what it does is it boxes you in from your next move.
It absolutely does. Yeah.
And I don't think that they felt like there was something out there this summer that was worth boxing themselves in for. Right. Now, it's been a critique of Rob Pelinka that he's not willing to take those swings. You know, and when he has, they've been kind of no-brainery, generally speaking. Yeah. With the exception, obviously, of being the Russell Westbrook trade. And we can talk about whether that was Rob, whether that was LeBron, and that's how, I mean, whatever. But I think that's sort of where they're at on that front. As to how the LeBron factors all, like, I mean, he has all the control in this still, right? Like, right. I mean, he can go to them and say, I don't want to play here. I mean, he's under contract, right? So he could do that, I guess. I don't believe there's a trade out there that makes any real sense that he would accept, that the Lakers would want to make, that a team would want to make back with the Lakers. Like, I just don't see that deal. I don't see LeBron James wanting to be traded in February. Yeah. Like that, again, after 23 in year 23 for the first time in your career. Like, I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening, but it doesn't mean it can't. Just to be like totally like something crazy.
We've seen crazy stuff happen in the league.
I feel like I have to put that after sitting in Madison Square Garden, looking at my phone and saying, wait, the Lakers traded for who? And they traded what? I'm prepared for anything, right? Yeah. I'm prepared for anything. But history has shown us, right? Like that. I think a lot of this comes down to, honestly, with LeBron, is that being in a situation where he wants to make sure that future flexibility doesn't come at the cost of being crummy in the short term. He doesn't want to play. And look, I think the Lakers will play high impact, meaningful basketball this year, provided their players are healthy, obviously. Yeah. But like when they step on the court, like they're going to have, you know, the leading scorer in the league history on their team. They're going to have, you know, a possible MVP in Luka Doncic, like a player of that caliber. And you have a guy entering free agency in Austin Reeves who, you know, in last May before the playoffs was being talked about as the best third option in the league. Absolutely. Like those are just facts. Yep. And so if that's not competitive enough, I just don't really know where competitive enough is.
Right. Like what's out there. And you know what? That's entirely fair. It's also a question that has to be determined in October, because we have to see how it shakes out. We have to see how these guys coalesce and get together, and how it all looks on paper versus how it looks on the court will be maybe different, maybe what's expected, maybe what ends up being a really, really good basketball team. Dan, anything else you got for us before we head out of here?
No, I'm so excited to be able to work with you guys on this type of stuff, and to be
We're excited to work with you too, man. Absolutely.
To be a part of the team is exciting. It's been, you know, it's been a whirlwind first month. I think today is like a month on the dot.
Oh, really? Nice. There you go.
And
1 month anniversary. Yeah.
How about it? Still have a job, which is great after a month. So no, it's exciting though. And I think being able to talk this stuff through with people is fun and interesting, because like it's complex. I think it's really complex. Yeah. And I think the last thing I'll say is like one of my favorite basketball sayings. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. It was Doc Rivers, when I covered him with the Clippers, like had like kind of a thing. It was just winning is hard. And it is. And a lot has to happen. A lot has to go right. And I think the fun part is trying to like see where it could go wrong, you know, and pull at those threads, and then hope the stuff like that, you know, you can't control sort of breaks your way. And, you know, if I think the pathway is sort of there for the Lakers, if a bunch of stuff breaks their way. I just think for some other teams, just less has to go right.
Yeah. And you know what? You know who understands that very, very well? LeBron James. He absolutely understands that concept well. Just because he's been there, he's done that. He understands how hard it is, incredibly hard to win basketball games.
People say we have similar basketball minds. Me and LeBron James.
Yeah. Mind the Game Part 3. I don't know. Think about it, Dan. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you to Dan for joining us here on the NBA Daily. We appreciate you guys as always for tapping in. Enjoy your summers. Get outside. Listen to the NBA Daily. Thank you from myself, Baraheni and Dan Woike. We will see you guys later. Take care.